sports, continuing the tradition of excellence.
Here at the Verizon University of 411, our operators are immersed in the art of directory assistance.
In Dallas, Stans meets.
214-522-12. Whenever you need a number, local or national, just dial 411 and let our operators do the rest.
Remember, no two numbers are the same.
Lotto Loot could be yours. The winning numbers live next. This is the news leader, WABC7 Eyewitness News.
With the promise of building a nation of justice and opportunity, tonight George W. Bush celebrates his first night as President of the United States. But first, a winter storm warning in effect across the area. Salt trucks are out in force as a snow-filled storm moves in. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tim Fleischer.
And I'm Sandra, Bookman, live in Washington, where the nation continues celebrating its brand new president. We'll have live team coverage. But first, we're going to go back to Tim in New York for a look at our other big story.
Thank you, Sandra. We'll return to our extensive coverage of the inauguration in just a moment, but we begin with the weather. The biggest problem right now, very slick roads, and the worst of that storm is still moving in. Let's get right to Lee Goldberg with the latest. Lee.
All right, Tim, 40 years ago today, 10 inches of snow in Central Park. It was the eve of the Kennedy inauguration. Now, after the Bush inauguration, we brace for another storm, not as big as coming on the backside of an inauguration this time. Let's give you the adjusted now storm time, snow amounts, and travel conditions overnight. Obviously, we've missed out on some of the snow accumulation potential during the evening hours, but yes, it is still coming. That's the big question you're wondering, I'm sure. It's a fast and furious storm, really getting into the heart of it after midnight and winding down as we go into daybreak, so that quick. 6 to 8 inches in general by Sunday morning, less far north and west. Also, the east end of the island may get a little bit less. It's snow on top of icing that we've had through the evening hours, so very treacherous later tonight with wind and blowing snow as well. Let's look at the radar, and again, everything's been fairly light, but a lot of icing, especially on Suffolk County. Light snows across northern New Jersey. Look back across eastern Pennsylvania. Now the snow's getting steadier here, and we'll move in over the next couple of hours, and then we're really going to snow. So we're still getting several inches of snow, but I have knocked down New York City's amounts just a little bit, between 6 and 8 inches instead of the 8 or 9 I was thinking. There still may be some double-digit amounts just north and west, but in general, a 6 to 8 inch storm, a little bit less far north and west, and also the east end of the island where it continues to mix. So a snow warning, a winter storm warning continues until 6 a.m. Sunday, and then things will get much better after that. There will be some blowing and drifting during the day. Much more on this developing storm a little later on in the show. Tim, back to you.
Thanks so much, Lee. Storm Watch 7 is tracking this nasty weather as it moves through our area. Anthony Johnson is in Ridgefield Park with the latest there. Anthony.
And good evening, Tim. And we've been seeing a mix of winter weather since about 6 o'clock this evening out here in New Jersey. Mostly a combination of freezing rain, periodically some snow coming about, but it has caused slick roadways here in New Jersey and elsewhere. The snow removal crews have been standing by and ready to go, gearing up for what could be a very long night. Freezing rain has already coated some areas, but the worst is still coming. In the city, a cold wind is a sign of trouble ahead, and the temperatures have been falling. While we wait, this storm has already caused problems on roadways on Long Island because of slick conditions. And on Route 80 westbound, a tour bus heading to Pennsylvania was involved in an accident that left 39 people injured. Fortunately, nobody was seriously hurt, but some passengers were taken to local hospitals to be checked out. The airports in our areas have been reporting cancellations, and you can expect more of that to come. Meanwhile, most people spent this day trying to get ready for the snow.
They said something between 10 and 12 inches. I hope it's not that bad. Since it's going to be a long day tomorrow, I'm just going to be stuck in and make sure that no one kills himself in my house.
If you didn't have a snow shovel the last time, why?
Well, I have one, but now I'm on my wife to help me.
And I just want to remind you that if you're heading out to the airport, especially in the morning, call your carrier just to ensure there are no cancellations or delays. Things really don't look too bad on the roadways right now. We're looking at the entrance to the New Jersey Turnpike. Things aren't looking too bad, but it's going to get worse later on. Live in Richfield Park, I'm Anthony Johnson, WABC7 Eyewitness News.
Lee will join us in just a few moments with more on our storm. Now, on to this historic day that saw George W. Bush inaugurated as the 43rd President of the United States. He pledged to work building a nation of justice and opportunity. But tonight, attention turns to inaugural balls and festive parties. Sandra Bookman is live in Washington with our special coverage. Sandra.
That's right, Tim. 8 inaugural balls tonight. The new president and new first lady are at this hour hitting them all. But this was a day for the nation to welcome its new commander-in-chief. Here's our story. The New York, New Jersey inaugural ball was the first stop of the evening for the new president and first lady, but just one in a day-long series of history-making events.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully...
Earlier in the day, Bush took the oath of office to become the nation's 43rd president and only the second son to follow in his father's footsteps to the highest post in the land.
With a simple oath, we affirm old traditions and make new beginnings.
After one of the longest and most bitterly divisive elections ever, Mr. Bush made good on promises of reconciliation, pledging to build a nation of justice and opportunity.
Sometimes our differences run so deep, it seems we share a continent, but not a country. We do not accept this, and we will not allow it.
The self-proclaimed compassionate conservative vowed to lead with civility, courage, compassion, and character, and didn't shy away from pinpointing specific goals.
We will reform Social Security and Medicare, sparing our children from struggles we have the power to prevent. And we will reduce taxes.
From the steps of the Capitol to the center of Pennsylvania Avenue and the inaugural parade. At one point, President and Mrs. Bush left the presidential motorcade to offer a more personal greeting to those lining the parade route. There was, however, time for some presidential business today. In one of his first official acts, Mr. Bush signed a congressional order setting ethical standards for his administration. Now, again, this new commander-in-chief is all play and not work tonight. Nina Pineda has spent much of the evening on the inaugural ball party circuit. Here's her report.
The long and the short of it is anything goes at the first inaugural balls of the new millennium. With this Republican regime from the Lone Star State, there's plenty of glitz, but critics will say it's not all good.
Right off the bat, you can tell something is different in the air. Maybe it's the odor of mothballs, I don't know.
But since we did attend the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and of course Empire State New York ball, there were plenty of celebrities to dress the crowd up. The Republicans don't generally dress as snazzy as this. You've got double-breasted, this like hidden box plaid. Republicans aren't wearing things like this. You think that the Republican Party will get a little more fashionable now that it's the new millennium?
Well, you know, this world is about changing for the best. But it's not what you have on, it's how you think.
If you've never been to an inaugural ball, you might be surprised. There's no place to sit, the bar is all cash, and the food definitely leaves something to be desired. What seems to matter is being able at least to say you went to an inaugural ball, and of course have the pictures to prove it. And May Lynn Tan, a Republican delegate from Queens, wouldn't have missed this moment of the inaugural for anything.
He has appointed so far 2 Asian cabinet members, and this is a history making.
Unity is a big theme for the Bush administration. Do you think that means New Yorkers will have to go cowboy? In Washington, Nina Pineda, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Now, let us not forget, even with all the pomp and circumstance and the bipartisan celebrating today, this is Washington. That means politics. And today, that translated into a record number of protests. Our political reporter, Dave Evans, continues our live team coverage with that part of the story.
Well, Sandra, putting Election 2000 behind them is certainly not something demonstrators wanted to do today in Washington. I think a lot of people were surprised by the number of protesters. Despite the cold and rain today, they came and made their presence known.
No justice!
Not since 1973, at the end of the Vietnam War, has an inauguration had so much anger. Protesters lined the parade route, tossing out catcalls as the presidential motorcade passed by. police made a handful of arrests that turned surprisingly violent. Yet most of the demonstrations were peaceful, demonstrations by women, union activists, and African Americans outraged by what happened in Florida.
Now's the time more than ever to fight for what we stand to possibly lose.
We're not going to get angry, we're going to go to action. We're going to see to it that this never happens again.
Power to the people!
The biggest protest was organized by Reverend Al Sharpton. It included a march to the Supreme Court and a different kind of oath.
The fact of the matter is, if there was an election today, you'd have the same problems in Florida. So it's easy for people that didn't have to fight to get the right to vote to say get over it.
7,000 police officers flooded the Capitol today, at times lining up to 4 deep. Republican stalwarts tried to remain upbeat about it.
Yeah, it's their First Amendment right, but if they have a problem with what the results were, they have a problem with the Founding Fathers and the Constitution, not in the process.
Tonight, D.C. police report a total of 6 arrests, all of them for disorderly conduct along the parade route. That is a relatively small number considering the large number of protesters today and considering how angry many of them remain. Reporting live on Capitol Hill, Dave Evans, ABC7 Eyewitness News. Sandra?
Dave, thank you. And of course, we have to remind you that certainly while this was a history-making day here in Washington, it was also a very personal day for the Bush family. They warned us ahead of time, and we certainly saw it. Both the father